Because if you're going to work with clients, you have to have a way to deliver the images to the clients. And I like to think that I've been through a lot of different platforms, had a lot of experiences. I've recently switched from one platform to another, which after now a number of years of shooting is creating a lot of extra work in terms of relocating those archives, but is well worth it. So I thought I would just share with you some of my experiences, what I think about the different platforms that are out there, why I chose to make a switch, and hopefully shed some light on what image delivery platform is going to be best for you. What's shakin' bacon? I'm Joni Simon. Welcome to my studio. This is where I do food photography, and the goal here is to improve your food photography skills so you can feel confident behind the camera. And like I mentioned, we're talking about getting those all-important images to your client, some sort of delivery system and how you go about that. And so I'm just gonna take you on a little trip down memory road, talk about what I've used and why I've switched over the years. And so when I very first started shooting for clients, what I started using right away was Dropbox, because that was something I was familiar with. I knew how to deliver other kinds of files through Dropbox. So I thought that was the most logical thing to do. And Dropbox is great. It's a low cost to no cost solution. Same thing with Google Drives, that especially if you're just starting out as a food photographer working with clients, those are great solutions. But at a certain point, I wanted something that was more specifically geared toward image delivery, preview galleries, and also something that was a little easier to keep myself organized. I found myself getting very disorganized very quickly in terms of just my file systems and the organization of folders in Dropbox. And so I was like, okay, it's time to move towards something that's more geared specifically towards image delivery. And so what did I do? But I looked at what my other photographer friends were using, and I noticed at the time a lot of people were using Zenfolio. And it's been a good solution for a couple of years for delivering images to clients, helping them see in a gallery view all of the images from a shoot, to keep all those images safe and stored online securely so that they can access them in the future and that I can go back to them. But it was about 6 months ago that I was like, there's just some things that I'm not totally in love with in terms of this platform. Now, that being said, what I'm going to talk about in this video, you might be absolutely in love with a particular platform, and that's perfect because everybody's business is different, their needs are different, what they like is different. So this is just my own personal perspective. So if you love Zenfolio and it's working for you, by no means should you feel like, I got to drop this because Joni said it's no good. No. It's a great platform. I just had some particular high maintenance needs. I'm high maintenance, right? But for me, there were two things that I was like, if I had a magic wand today and I could change about this platform to make it better, this is what I would change. And so the first being that there was raw image storage, right? That we've of course got the final images that we deliver to the client, whether that be a JPEG or a TIFF file, but then we also have that raw file because I'm shooting in RAW. And I really want to be able to archive the RAWs alongside with those final JPEGs or TIFF files and be able to put those all together so that they're in one safe and secure place. Now, Zenfolio does do this, which is wonderful, but at the same time, they do start to charge additional based on a certain amount of storage. I can't quote you the exact numbers on that, but I was like, oh, this is going to start getting expensive fast in consideration of just how many images and how many RAW files I have. And two, something we talked about a number of weeks ago is the XMP files, that I really like to hang on to those alongside the RAW files so that if ever in the future that a client comes back and says, hey, I need a higher resolution version of this, or I need a different version of this, or what have you, just never know what might happen in the future, that I have access to the RAW file, I have access to the XMP file with all the edits I made, and be able to go back into that image and do what I need to do. Now, the problem with Zenfolio is they don't store the XMP file format, so I wasn't able to store those files. What I could have done instead is just convert everything to .dng, the digital, I can't remember what that stands for. I could save them as DNG and in effect have the same exact solution, but it's different. It's just changing up my workflow, and I was like, there's got to be something out there that can keep the XMP file for me and the RAW file and all of those final images in terms of the JPEGs and the TIFFs. I wanted it all perfect, right? That is the definition of satisfaction, is having everything exactly the way you want it, right? But then too, the other thing that I was running into that I didn't totally love about Zenfolio, and I could never really get a good solution or answer to, was that there were some issues with the user interface side of things. That for whatever reason, that the front end, in terms of like when you send the gallery to the client, it wasn't super intuitive on how they would actually download the images. Like they could see them easily, no problem, but like the actual download functionality of like when they wanted to grab them just wasn't super obvious. And so I had literally a whole script, something that I had typed up, directions of how to download the images that I would copy and paste and put into the body of the email when I would send it to the client. Like, here's your images, and here's the step-by-step instructions how to download the image. To me, this is 2019, like user interfaces should be intuitive. That's just the world we live in. Now, I did reach out to support a couple times and say, you know, is there maybe a different theme I should be using, or some setting somewhere that makes this more obvious? And there was never really any good solution or feedback or input on that. So I was like, okay, well, you know, it is what it is, right? It was fine. But it was about 6 months ago, and I got to thinking, you know, there's gotta be a better solution out there, right? So I played around with a couple others, checked out SmugMug, played with PixieSet, ShootProof. I really liked the user interface on PixieSet, just in terms of the way that looked for a client. It was very user-friendly, very intuitive how to download things. The gallery view is very beautiful. But I ran into the issue that there was no raw file storage. So I was like, oh, okay. But after trying a bunch of them out, I was like, you know, none of these are so amazing or perfect in the way that they're built that it would compel me to make any sort of switch. So I just kept doing things over on Zenfolio, and it was fine. And I was like, you know, there's no such thing as perfect software, right? Right. But what I did is I did share on Instagram stories. I said, hey, everybody, I'm looking at different options. If anybody's got a solution out there that they absolutely love, that has a great user interface, that stores your raw files, can also store a variety of different file formats, that you're super happy with and is cost effective, like hit me up. And I really, really wish I could remember who it was, but some blessed soul on Instagram messaged me and said, you should go check out PhotoShelter. And so whoever you are out there, if it was you who messaged me, I want to say a big thank you and like mad props, and go ahead and message me. I just want to say thank you. And so I started poking around PhotoShelter, and I was like, okay, we're checking some boxes here, right? Like the file formats that I can store, you know, of course, all my JPEGs, the high res, the low res. I can keep all of my raw files, the XMP files, DNGs, TIFFs, like they cover the gamut. So I was like, okay, sweet. The other thing I really appreciated too about the raw files is they weren't charging anything additional for that raw storage, that was just built into their base package. I am a huge believer in not nickel and diming people, keeping all costs very apparent. And so I just really appreciated that. Another thing I really like about PhotoShelter that I didn't know necessarily going into it, but I've discovered that is making my life a lot easier, especially as I'm transitioning all of my folders from one system to another, is that they have a FTP style uploader for your desktop so that you don't have to do everything via web, that I can set it all up and it will transfer the entire file structure. So if I take a folder that's got subfolders in it and I drag it and drop it through this FTP style uploader on my desktop, it will transfer all of that and keep it nice and tidy. It's just a whole lot easier in terms of making big moves and transferring a lot of files all at once. But then the most important thing and the real moment of truth is, how is it just in terms of that client user interface? Is it intuitive? Is it going to be easy for them to download? Do I have to send step-by-step instructions explaining how to download stuff? And so I went ahead, I had a trial version of PhotoShelter and I had a client, and I went ahead and just used PhotoShelter instead of Zenfolio for sending in the images, just to see like, okay, how do they do with it? How much do I need to explain? And they went in, downloaded their images, used the little password I gave them. They were rocking and rolling. No problem. I was like, oh, slam dunk, we've won. And so I've now started every shoot then thereafter. I've delivered through PhotoShelter. It's been so much easier for the clients to access those, to download those, as long as I set the permissions correctly on my side. Sometimes I'm not paying attention and I forget to like say, yes, the client can download these, because you do have the ability to say they can look at them but not download them, and you know, just all those various levels of access, or you know, they can download to this certain size, or they can download the full resolution, what have you. So sometimes I I'm just not a detail-oriented person sometimes, so I mark that incorrectly. All that said, as long as I set it up correctly, they have no problem downloading it. It's a lot easier, and I just like the way it looks. It looks really professional. I like the way it presents my images. Now, all that said, PhotoShelter is not sponsoring this video. I do, however, have a referral link down below, so if you want to go check that out and, you know, poke around yourself, because I do believe that everybody's business is unique, and the needs that you have are different than the needs that I have. What's important to you is different than what's important to me. So definitely do your due diligence. Like I said, when you're very first starting out, use a low cost, no cost solution. The Dropboxes and Google Drives of the world are fantastic, but when you are kind of to that point where you want to use something that's a little bit more robust and specifically built for image delivery, I'd highly recommend checking out PhotoShelter, but there's a ton of great solutions out there. If you are in love with the solution that you're using, feel free to use the comments below. We all want to check it out. And I mean, I'm not making any changes at this point. I've invested way too many hours in making a switch, and I'm very happy about it. But at the same time, it might spur on some inspiration for some of you out there. So I hope you're doing well. I hope you're getting a chance to get out there and shoot something today. I just really appreciate you guys. If you're not already, be sure to follow me over on Instagram, sharing some, not every day, but at least a couple times a week, sharing some behind the scenes of what I'm shooting. And with that, you stay out of trouble, and I'll see you soon, okay? Bye.